Elizabeth II has died. Long live King Charles, I guess, right? Buckingham Palace has confirmed that Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II died on Thursday at the age of 96. She's practically a baby. The Queen died peacefully at Balmoral yesterday afternoon. The King and the Queen consort will remain at Balmoral this evening and will return to London. I guess this was a statement from yesterday, so I guess they're returning to London today. A statement from the Buckingham Palace stated. Now, obviously, folks, if you're listening to this show, you probably have a little bit of a different view of the world and politics than what is in the mainstream corporate media. Obviously, they are treating this as some great tragedy, like the greatest woman in the history of the world died. And look, I got no beef, no personal beef with Queen Elizabeth, the person, in terms of, because I didn't know her. But her legacy, just like those in her family, will always be the British Empire. It is that simple. I think it's important to talk about these things here on this show because, look, CNN and ABC and NBC and Fox and all these people are not going to talk about this, but I will. I'm just going to come out and say it. I know they say you shouldn't say bad things about the dead, and that's fine most of the time when they haven't been at the helm of empires that have exploited and massacred millions of people and destroyed millions of lives along the way. It's important to remember that over the centuries, the UK has funneled trillions of dollars from its colonies to enrich itself. It continues to profit from this wealth, this plundered wealth, to this day. Slavery. They established a slave trade that saw the transport of millions and millions and millions of African people and South and North Americans to other countries. People forget that too. They transported some of them over there to England before they ended slavery over there. The slave trade was so vast that it was not until 2015 that the country fully paid off its debts to slave owners from freeing slaves in the 19th century. Think about that. It was not until 2015, 7 years ago, that they fully paid off its debts to slave owners for freeing slaves in the 19th century. By 1920, just 6 years before Queen Elizabeth was born, the British Empire covered a full quarter of the entire Earth's land mass. That's who the British Empire is, folks. That's who our parents are and our grandparents were, and that's who she was as well. When she took the throne in 1952, the British Empire had encompassed parts of Africa, Asia, the Middle East, and the Pacific, and included 700 million people. 700 million people under her jurisdiction when she took the throne as a 26-year-old. How vast was her wealth? She owned 6.6 billion acres of land. Now, mind you, I said billion. With a B. That's with a B, everybody. She owned 6.6 billion acres of land. Far and away the world's largest landowner. The closest runner-up, another one of our great allies in Saudi Arabia, King Abdullah, who only controlled a mere 547 million acres of land. Oh, he's practically a pauper. King Abdullah's 547 million acres only gave him about 12% of the land that was owned by Her Majesty the Queen. star economist Utsa Patnarik, who received her doctorate from Oxford University in the UK, estimated that over the course of 200 years, the British had siphoned off an amount of around $40 trillion just from the country of India alone. Now that's trillion with a T. $45 trillion that they stole from the Indian people. Now I know a lot of you love Google. You can go on Google right now and look at the pictures of the Indian famine and the pure genocide of Indian people during the 19th and 20th centuries. $45 trillion. To give you some context of how much that is, the world's economy today is collectively, if I'm not mistaken, around $80 trillion. The world's economy put together is about $80 trillion. So that's a lot of wealth stolen from a country that had mass starvation. Hundreds of millions of people starving. What did they see in these great lands in India and Africa? The wealth. They saw the wealth, folks. They saw the wealth. The world's largest diamond, the Star of Africa, Cullinan diamond, was stolen from Africa in South Africa, and pieces of it were put on the British sovereign crown. Her royal scepter, and the rest in the royal jewel collection. So whenever you saw the queen sit up behind on the throne with that crown on and the royal scepter, and in all that jewelry, know that they plundered that from Africa. They stole that from Africans. The world's largest diamonds. And these are the same people who will go over to Africa and pretend that they're doing charity. All these diamonds and all this gold, all this jewelry. That's why I don't know anything about soccer. I'm not a soccer fan in the slightest. I'll be honest with you here. I'm an American. I don't like soccer any more than I like royalty and the concept of monarchs. But the great soccer player Diego Maradona will always be my favorite soccer player for the simple fact that he met the Pope some years ago before he died. Rest in peace, Diego Maradona. He met the Pope some years ago in Vatican City. And the Pope, I guess, was giving some speech about charity and why it's important to give charity and help the poor and all this other stuff. Diego Maradona looks at him and says, "Hey, why don't you sell some of these jewels in here? You could help a lot of poor people with those. If you're worried about poor people, why don't you let them stay here in the Vatican? Y'all got a lot of space here." If there's one thing I want you guys to learn from this show, as long as I've been hosting it, it is that we must not trust and we must always be critical of the elites. Political elites, economic elites, religious elites, whoever. We must always be questioning the elites, their wealth and their power. And Queen Elizabeth is no different. Now, in recent years, the Crown has resisted calls for reparations from countries like Barbados and Jamaica for their bloody and abominable exploitation during the British slave trade. Again, I just told you the Queen had the world's largest diamond, the Star of Africa, the Cullinan diamond in her crown. She owns 6.6 billion acres of land, making her by far the world's largest property owner. You telling me they couldn't have gave half of that land back to some of those groups of people that were exploited by the British slave trade? That she couldn't have given some of those diamonds in her crown and in her royal jewel collection back to the people she stole it from? There are situations like the so-called civilization mission during the last years of colonial rule in Kenya during the 1950s and 60s, where the British Army, under her, created a vast network of secret detention camps, concentration camps for Kenyans that housed as many as 1.5 million members of Kenyans' Kikuyu community. In those camps, officials practiced unimaginable sadistic forms of torture among the men and women, often, and I gotta be graphic here, sodomizing people with bayonets, men and women, torturing children. This was during the Queen's reign, what the British Royal Military Army was doing. And if you just think that, well, that was far and away from where the Queen was, she wasn't witness to any of that, just know that no colored immigrants or foreigners were allowed to work in Buckingham Palace until at least well over a decade into Queen Elizabeth's reign. So it should not surprise you the treatment that they've allowed to her, I guess it would be her granddaughter-in-law, Meghan Markle. How disrespected the Queen and the royal family has allowed her to be in the press in the UK. People in the royal family asking, "Ooh, I wonder how black this kid's gonna be." Ooh, oh, slandering Miss Markle in the press. But I tell you, I've always believed that her grandson, the redhead prince, Prince Harry, I think he married Meghan Markle on purpose. That was his revenge for what they did to his mama. How much you want to bet? This is his revenge. He ain't forgot how they treated his mama all those years. He has not forgotten how they treated his mother, the only decent member of the royal that anybody liked, in Princess Diana. Princess Diana was the only royal anybody really liked. Let's just be real. Now, I'm not saying they killed her, but I am not going to not say that they didn't kill her, however that works. I'm not going to not say they didn't kill her either, okay? And they slandered her before that, years before that anyway, so that Charles could marry a woman who looked like his father, I guess. And so, no, Prince Harry knows exactly what he's doing. He married a woman that's very much like his mother, who's headstrong, who has her own opinions, who has her own thoughts, because he knows how hypocritical, and he knew just how ruthless and treacherous and phony all of them are in his family. And he said, get me out of here. And that's why him and his wife moved over to California somewhere with their kids so they can be happy. And the British press treats her as the literal black sheep in the family, while the Queen's son, Prince Andrew, was connected to Jeffrey Epstein and is caught lying about soliciting services from underage girls. But yet it's Meghan Markle who's embarrassing the royal family. Folks, this is who these people are. This is who these folks have always been. This is who these folks will always be. This is why I, as an American, I am glad that we technically do not have any monarchs and we do not support that nonsense. It's always very disheartening for me when I see Americans, you know, crying because the Queen died or worshiping at the Queen. We fought a whole war to get away from those people. I'm sorry, 2 wars. We fought a whole 2 wars to get away from those people. Okay, that is not our crap. We don't have kings and queens here. We just have capitalists that exploit everybody. Let me get this phone call before I take a break. Hello, caller.
What is up, Scott? How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. And yourself?
I'm okay. Hey, Scott, I want to ask you a question.
Yes, yes.
Now, you know, on your show, you like to do a lot of elderly abuse. You say Joe Biden, see now, you jumped on the Queen. I think, man, maybe you have a mental defect, man. You need some help, young man.
Who, Joe Biden?
No, you need some help.
For what?
Protecting the elderly people, man. The audience is elderly.
I don't attack the elderly. I love the elderly.
No, you need to get some help, young man.
Okay.
I think you're jealous, man. You need to work on yourself.
Okay. Well, all right. Thank you for your call, sir. Yes, maybe it's my, I love your calls. I respect all of your calls. I don't always agree with them, but our caller has his right to an opinion. That I attack Joe Biden. I attack the Queen. Look, I have no problems with putting my political views and values up front. I do not support imperialism. I do not support capitalism or corporatism and the system that exploits the working classes and the poor. And the Queen and Joe Biden are people who have spent their entire lives exploiting people. And so I look at them as fair game. As a left-wing populist, I support dismantling all of our hierarchies that exploit working class people and the poor in our society, that don't serve the poor people in our society. Joe Biden has spent 50 years in Congress. This is a man who supported segregation and was friends with segregationists like Strom Thurmond. Said that he did not want his kids growing up in a racial jungle. That was Joe Biden. I don't want my kids growing up in a racial jungle. Yes. The current president of the United States said that in his opposition to school busing. This is a man who led the charge of mass incarceration in this country. Everything about Joe Biden is fraudulent. That's who he is. Joe Biden is a fraud.
Democratic presidential candidate Joseph Biden today faces a controversy. 3 weeks ago at a debate at the Iowa State Fair, he used phrases identical to those delivered by British Labour Party leader Neil Kinnock.
Biden seemed to be claiming Kinnock's vision and life as his own.
Why is it that my wife is sitting out there in the audience, is the first in her family to ever go to college?
Why is Gladys the first woman in her family in 1,000 generations
to be able to get to university.
My ancestors who worked in the coal mines in northeast Pennsylvania don't come up after 12 hours and play football.
8 hours underground, and then come up and play football.
It's because they didn't have a platform upon which to stand.
There was no platform upon which they could stand.
The notion that every thought or notion or idea you'd have to go back and find and attribute to someone, I think is, quite frankly, ludicrous.
The problem here is that Senator Biden told his audience he'd just been thinking about these things, and he failed to give any credit at all to his famous British speechwriter.
You know, I was thinking on the way over here. Now, that's a little too much, because, as you point out, what's behind the words? What's there? And a lot of people, the rap on Biden has always been that it's just a surface.
I should have said, to paraphrase Neil Kinnock, it's the only time I didn't, and all the times I've ever used it.
But CBS News found a tape of a second instance.
It reappeared in the New York Times with a new charge, that Biden had appropriated a famous litany from the late Robert Kennedy about what the gross national product cannot measure.
It cannot measure the health of our children,
the health of our children,
the quality of our education,
the quality of their education,
the joy of their play,
or the joy of their play.
Biden gave Kennedy no credit. He has also quoted or paraphrased John Kennedy, Hubert Humphrey, and British Labour Party leader Neil Kinnock, all without credit.
Joseph Biden admitted today that he committed plagiarism when he was in law school. He said it was a mistake, but that it was unintentional.
He quoted 5 pages of someone else's work without proper citation.
I've done some dumb things, and I'll do dumb things again.
He was
you're
given
right
an
about
F.
that,
Ladies
Joe.
and gentlemen, I've been dumb.
Joe is definitely right about that. I've done some dumb things, and I'll do some more. Now, this was in 1988, actually, when Joe Biden was running for president. He had to drop out of the race. This was the first time he ran for president. He had to drop out of the race because he had completely plagiarized all these speeches and stolen the entire life story of other politicians. He was doing that 35 years ago almost. Barack Obama always said about Joe Biden, never underestimate Joe's ability to screw things up. Does Barack Obama need mental health issues? Is he just jealous of Joe Biden? No. My issues with Joe Biden is because he's a imperialist. He's a liar. He spent his entire career undermining black people's best interest. And this is a man who led the charge to mass incarcerate everybody for drugs while his kids are 2 of the biggest drug addicts on the planet, and he went out of his way to shield them from any prosecution or persecution into the current day. We've covered here on this show very recently, Hunter Biden has been caught on camera again, smoking crack with Russian prostitutes, put a plastic bag on one of their heads, and took a picture of it. That's who Joe has been shielding all these years, while at the same time mass incarcerating all of us. So no, I don't think I'll be apologizing to Joe Biden or Queen Elizabeth or any of these other imperialists that I skew on a regular basis. All right, folks, we got to go to our very first break. Please, tell me how you feel about the Queen, or Joe Biden, for that matter. 219-885-1371. That number again, 219-885-1371. When we get back, we got to talk about this water crisis in Mississippi. Be right back after these.